Thanks for joining us as we look at 7 Christian scientists who changed the world. I'm John Newton, and science fiction author, and I'm joined tonight by the first time by Seth Wallace, who is also a science fiction author. Eric from Your Brother in Christ was scheduled to be here tonight, but was unable to join us. He might be slipping in later, depending on how things are going. But together, Seth and I will take a look at these 7 Christian scientists who changed the world. And we're going to keep an eye on the chat because we want this to be an interactive thing with you guys. And as we step through, if you have any insight on these, and we're these scientists and mathematicians and philosophers, please chime in. Also, we're going to be talking about some of their approaches, some of their ways of thinking, and some quotes from them as well. And so the way that we're going to set this up a little bit tonight is we're going to introduce each one of these scientists, philosophers, mathematicians, say what field that the scientist was in, contributions, his Christian beliefs, and his impact on modern life. Then we're going to ask the question, what would life today be like without that person? Having given all that knowledge that we set up for it, we're going to take a closer look in that direction. So if you could, please feel free to add anything to our discussion. We'd love to hear from you. It's always better when we have an interaction with people in the chat, and I'm going to keep an eye open for that as well. Before we get started, I do want to remind you that if you have not already done so, please check out my latest short story, Child of the Stone, which is a prequel to the novel The Healing Stone, to be released early next year. Now, I'm looking for people who would read the story and give honest reviews on Amazon or whatever aggregator that you use. Every one of those reviews and ratings helps tremendously. I can't tell you as authors how those mean so much to us, because it verifies to other people that, hey, this story might be worth taking a look at. The link for getting the short story for free is in the description of this video. So you can go ahead and sign up for that. You'll also sign up for my newsletter, which is rare and entertaining. So you're not going to be pestered by that. Guarantee that, 100%. So the reason why we're doing this, looking at 7 scientists who ruled the world, or influenced the world, not really ruled the world, but influenced the world. And these are Christian scientists, was to sort of debunk the myth that Christianity and science are at loggerheads or fighting each other. You can either have one or the other. You can't really have both. And so what we had done is we had taken a look at some previous videos, some other aspects of it, and we're looking at this directly from who made contributions to science and math and philosophy, and were there Christians? And if so, what minuscule influence did these guys have? So we're going to take a look at some memes coming in here first before we get started. This is the first meme. You can't call yourself a critical thinker and be religious too. I don't know. Seth, have you ever seen stuff like this floating around and you're thinking,
yeah, all the time, man. And I can't tell you how many unproductive Facebook debates I've gotten in with atheists over stuff like this. And it blows my mind because these same people who post this and call themselves critical thinkers also think that everything that we see, the absolutely fine-tuned universe, all came from nothing. And before, decades ago, they used to think the prevailing theory was that the universe was an infinite cycle of expansion and collapse. And so even though I think that's illogical in its own way, I can kind of see how they can sort of suspend, this sort of logical thinking and agree with that. But when science has now proven that the universe has had a definitive start and that it has not just infinitely been going because its rate of expansion is actually accelerating, it's not going to collapse back in on itself. The fact that we know that it had a definitive beginning and to think that this is all there is, I don't see how you can think that and call yourself a critical thinker. So this stuff right here is like just cognitive dissonance in my mind. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think there's two sides of this coin too. I mean, if we're going to be critical thinkers as Christians, we need to also take a look at it, say that, okay, if I see something in the world around me that seems to contradict the scripture, I need to take a closer look and say, what's going on? Is it my understanding of what the Bible says, or is it my understanding of the world around me, or maybe both? And faith, science. Sometimes we've started to delve a little bit into not just science, but scientism, believing that having faith in scientists, believe the science. Have you heard that phrase recently at all?
A lot. I've seen it on signs too in people's yards, actually.
So what does that mean? Believe the science?
Well, I think what they want it to mean is anything that's not accepted by mainstream pop science should not be believed in. Basically, like everything else is stupid. In reality, science itself is simply a mechanism by which we know and understand the veritas or truth of the situation. It's a process. It's a method for understanding the world and reality around us. And so what they say that it means, or what they take it to mean, I think is a lot different than what that should mean. Because if they really took science at its heart as like a logical thing, then they would be unbiased truth seekers. And with only a few exceptions, the vast majority of atheists that I've ever debated with have been some of the most biased people I've ever come across. Like, it's unreal. And so
would you say they have faith in their belief?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And I love that you say faith, because that reminds me of the book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. It's a great read,
right,
by the way.
Right. So Thomas Hall chimed in. He said, proof that Christian science is a fake cult. Oh, I've got to be so careful in naming this, because it says 7 Christian scientists. And I'm not talking about the cult. I'm talking about scientists who were Christians and not the other way around. But
it's so funny. When I was sharing the link for this live stream coming up, I was literally specifying, we're not talking about the cult. We mean Christians who are also scientists in history.
Yes. And Thomas Hall's a great guy. So he says, you can't say Christian scientists without spreading chaos and confusion. Oh, I know. That's probably, that cult is going to die out, but we're going to still have that tension between saying that name and not have confusion spread by it. But so the scientists that we're naming tonight were not of the Christian Scientist cult or Christian Science. It's not, the two are not together. So yeah, definitely 100%. So I got in a debate not too long ago with a group of people. They were saying, I say, well, faith does not just mean a religious thing. Faith means trust and belief. And they said, no, it means it's all religious. And well, what does it mean when you lose faith in somebody, or your spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever has been unfaithful? Does that mean they've been not going to church? And so if you go back to, this is an English word, but if you go back to the Greek word, believe is, if I believe in something, it's a verb. If I have faith, that's a noun. But in Greek, they're really the same word. One's a noun form of the other. Pisteuo and pistis. Pistis is faith, and pisteuo is I believe. So if you have faith that your car is going to start tomorrow before you go to work, you're not going to give yourself an extra half an hour to get to work, because you're going to have to maybe jumpstart your car or something like that. You have faith. You believe it's going to happen. And so the same thing with God there too. Let's take a look at another meme, and we're just going to go through these a bit. As for science versus religion, I'm issuing a restraining order. Religion must stay 500 yards from science at all time. What do you think about this one?
Oh my gosh, this is so stupid because of the very topic that we're talking about tonight, in that so many of the world's most premier scientists in history have been Christians. And the reason why they were so motivated to, pursue these scientific endeavors was because they wanted to understand and appreciate the creation that God had made around them. They knew that it wasn't all for nothing. They knew that nihilism wasn't true. They knew there was a meaning and purpose to it, and they wanted to find out more about the one that made them. And so they were so interested in the world that he made. And so this is just ludicrous, this whole line of thought.
Right. This is I got a comment here from the Christian Sodium channel. You mentioned people think faith quirks blind belief. No, it means operating with incomplete knowledge, but making logical judgments with evidence available. I think we always have incomplete knowledge on things. We do not know exactly what's going to be happening in the future. I mean, we can make a guess, but we don't know. We never have sufficient knowledge. Even our relationships, like I said, with your wife or your girlfriend, you don't know she's not going to be cheating on you. You don't, but based on your relationship in the past, you trust that she won't.
And that's the thing, is that everything, from a philosophical standpoint, literally everything requires some measure of faith. And this is something they actually go on about in the book that I mentioned before, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. It's a great apologetics tool. But basically, they talk about how even in just crossing the street, you have some tiny measure of faith that a meteorite is not going to come streaking out of the sky and kill you before you make it to the other side. Now, it's so improbable that you don't even think about it. The chances are minuscule, but it is technically possible. And so it's sort of a balance of probability. And we do this every day, every minute of our lives, all the time. You know, we take things on faith. I have faith that the world that I'm in is not a holographic simulation. I can't prove that it's not or that it is, but based on what I can see on the balance of probability, I'm maybe 98% sure based on that, and then 2% faith. I believe based on the balance of probability. And I think the same is true of Christianity. You see so much evidence, and yes, there's a level of faith. And I would dare say that the atheist has to have a whole lot more faith than we do, even though they're the ones talking about evidence all the time.
You know, you cannot operate without a level of trust in the physical world at all. I mean, you wouldn't get out of bed in the morning.
No.
Because there's so many things around. You're making assumptions about things. You have to be able to do that. Another comment from the Sodium channel. He says, the earliest Christians were very keen on logic, reason, and how the universe works. They were quite brilliant, many of them. So I don't know if you're talking about the church fathers, if maybe some of the quotes on there. As I'm getting more into apologetics, I'm digging more into what the early church had to say, especially with the canonization of the New Testament, how that process happened. We have some earlier videos that we did, I think the end of last year, talking about that. We went to quite a bit of depth. And if you haven't had a chance to see it, check out our skit on, what was it? The Council of Nicaea. We had a lot of fun pulling that together. And let's see, we have Nicodemus says, critic cannot hold his tongue. Don't look as perky at this time of day as you do for the morning show. Sorry, I had to go there. Yeah, well, this happens. So another part of this meme here, I want to take a look. I don't want to spend too much on these memes because there's so much material we have. I want to make sure that we have time to cover it. But one thing, just looking at this now, is this: religion must stay 500 feet away from science. Not that science has to stay away from religion. That has a lot to do, like, with the separation of church and state was originally keeping the state out of the church and not the other way around. So before we move on to the next one, I want to put this comment up. This is, I have many of the early writings I read in audiobook, if I may shill myself. I read in an audiobook. Oh, okay, cool. So I'm just curious if you have that published or where that is. I wouldn't mind just listening to a lot of your early church fathers and stuff like that, instead of trying to actually read them. If we could get, like, who was the guy who did Darth Vader? He just passed away. Maybe somebody like that. Was that?
Was his name James Earl? Is that who you're
talking about? James Earl Jones. If we could have him read, it wouldn't be able to do it now, of course, but somebody like him read some of the early church fathers. I just love,
an AI voice. You could do like an AI replication of his voice.
Yeah,
replicate that.
Yes. Not quite the same. Yep. No, we were just talking about him the other day too. So the next meme we could look at, and this is pretty much the same thing, trying to separate science and religion. And the idea is that, hey, one is based on faith, the other is based on evidence. And I would say not so much. Here's another one. It's God's science. It's God's way of telling you he doesn't exist. All right. What do you think about that one?
Oh my gosh, what an arrogant postulation of ignorance. Like I mean, these people, it's like they can't get enough of themselves. They just sit there and stroke their intellectual ego all day long. I don't really know what to say to this other than it just feels like a non sequitur. It's like science is the order, right? The order of the veritas, the truth of the universe, of reality.
Right.
It shows
Right.
that everything makes sense. There are laws. Mathematics, I remember hearing like it was some kind of video. Some guy was talking about how mathematics actually proves God. You see all this order, all this structure, which is science, and then it's saying it's God's way of telling you he doesn't exist. No, the fact that science exists, the fact that the physical universe makes sense at all, is proof that God exists. Like how?
Yeah, this is the opposite of Romans chapter 1, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, where Paul is saying that even if they didn't, these other civilizations that weren't the Jewish civilizations, at least they did have the world around them that would point to God.
Yes.
Creation itself.
Exactly.
So, okay, let's take a look at another one here. This one was interesting. It says religion. They're casting religion and saying this: no question, God did it. God wills it. And science says, do you have any questions? It says faith does not give you the answers. It just stops you from asking the question.
So what's funny to me is the only time I've seen any version of a Christian of the one on the left is like a very poor straw man of Calvinists. I mean, like nobody goes around just looking at things. No rational person goes around just looking at things and saying, just don't even question it. Just God willed it. Let's not even understand. Literally, I believe it's Peter who tells us in the New Testament, always be prepared to give a reason for why you believe what you believe. We are not called to just sit here like ostriches with our heads in the sand and just be like, I don't know. It's just God said so. I mean, we're called to understand. God is our intelligent creator. We're called to understand the intelligent world that he's made. He gave us intelligence. He gave us curiosity.
Yeah. Now, this is not saying that people in the church or church representatives or Christians have ever used this as an excuse. And I know out of frustration, sometimes I've told my kids this. They say, why, Dad? I try to give them a good reason why I make a decision so that they can understand reasoning and make decisions on their own. But sometimes when you're just asked over and over and over and it's bad timing, you've got to get this. I just said so. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I know that there's probably been situations in the church that say, listen, we really don't know why, but God said it. I believe it. That settles it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, without actually investigating. So I think there's maybe some truth in this, but
I see where you're coming from. Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but it's not like it just seems like an over expanded straw man of Christianity as a whole. Like there is no reasoning or rhyme or reason to anything. It's just, oh well, God said it, and I just can't disagree with that more.
Yeah, yeah. And Nick Nevis chimed in. He said, Oive, every priest I know encourages questions, seeking.
Exactly. Yes.
And, Tom McFall said, theology was the queen of sciences. Many arguments used in science and philosophy had their roots in theology, i.e. Occam's razor. I would agree. And we're going to take, when we start diving into these scientists, I tell you what, when I first started looking to do this, I was a little bit thinking like, yeah, okay, Middle Ages, Age of Enlightenment, you are going to have cultural Christianity. You're going to have a lot of these scientists are basically Christian because everybody was in that day and stuff like this. But man, when I started digging in on what these guys were, they weren't, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them weren't just scientists and mathematicians. They were theologians. They really delved into it. So I was like, yeah. So, you know, it's not just coincidence. It's these two go together. Mm-hmm. Comment from the Christian Sodium channel. The ancient mythos/logos dichotomy needs to be popularized again. Recognition of what we can never know or absolutely know. Scientific method kind stifled the mythos concept. You know, I would agree with you 100% because there was to a point in the 1800s, there was something called German rationalism that said that we can determine everything once we know all the variables. So it's almost like setting up a scientific experiment or some kind of simulation that we can put into the computer. As long as we know all the variables, we can simulate everything together. Until Heisenberg came around with modern science and with quantum mechanics and said, at some point, you get down to a point where either you know the velocity of a subatomic particle or you know its position. You cannot know both. It is impossible. So there was uncertainty that was added to science, and that just kind of opened up the door to say, hey, guys, we can't know everything. There's no way we can know everything here. Nicodemus mentioned, he said, C.S. Lewis, when the philosophers reach the mountaintops, they will find the theologians waiting. Yep. And guys, I'm not going to be able to keep up with all the chat. You guys are responsive. I just need to keep on moving, but I'm going to try to catch as much as I can as we keep on going. So let's take a look at this next meme here. This one says, I can barely even read this one here because the camera's in the way. It says, God, I can't read it. Can you read that for me?
I can't
sorry.
Even. I don't
There we go.
Oh, there
I
we go.
put it on the screen.
You want me to read? It says, gods are fragile things. They may be killed by a whiff of science or a dose of common sense, by Chapman Cohen. Oh,
do you know who this guy is?
I do not. I feel like the name is vaguely familiar, but I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with him.
I have no idea either. So we're gonna see some heavy hitters. What's
silly. That? I said it's a silly quote though. Very yeah.
We're gonna see some heavy hitters tonight. I mean, men who changed the world, and they would disagree with this. So I think God is not just going to be broken by some new scientific theory. That's not gonna happen. So the next one we can take a look at real quick, and this is almost the verging of sacrilegious: science debunking religion since 965, and it has a number of scientists, both modern, mostly modern, and some ancient. They have who's in the center there, taking like the
looks like Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein.
Yeah,
he wasn't an atheist.
No, he was Jewish, wasn't he?
Yeah, yes, as far as I know. What's that?
I said, yeah, I believe he was Jewish. I know he wasn't an atheist though.
Yeah, and he rejected quantum physics because he said God does not play with dice. So he believed there was a certain deterministic side to the universe here. I'm not saying he was a Christian, not saying he was a believer, but he did believe in God, and he was one of the, most influential scientists of all. So there's things like this that are out there that give people this picture of the opposition of science to Christianity. I'm going to pull up a couple more comments here before we go to the next one. In ancient times, everyone agreed we don't know who is on the moon. That's mythos. Logos is more, I'm holding up this cup. So we did have a live stream a while back talking about the way that both C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien viewed the myth as a concept. Myth is viewed today as being something that's not true, something that's false. So that's just a myth. But the concept of myth is it goes beyond reality because it's able to encapsulate ideas. So there's a lot of symbolism, a lot of other things that go into it. You look at the book of Revelation, for example, it's so heavy with symbolism that just having an object there for what it is more than just what it is. It's more what it represents. And I think that's maybe what you're talking about there too. Okay, the next one looking at is Christianity. Just think, we could have been exploring the galaxy by now. And this is a real jab at Christianity to say that you guys are holding us back. Not only are you backwards and uneducated, but you're a blight on society. And it shows a graph saying Egyptians are in 1000 BC, scientific advance progressed by the Egyptians, by the Greeks, by the Romans, and it has this exponential curve, but it is squashed because of the hole left by Christians in the Dark Ages. So Christians killed everything during the Dark Ages, and then you have the Renaissance, and hey, we're recovering after these idiots, hitting the Age of Enlightenment, modern science, and boy, we would have been, swimming in hot tubs on the moons of Jupiter right now had it not been for Christians. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, it's just kind of the same rhetoric as the other ones. I mean, literally just the Christians that we're going to talk about today who are pioneers in science. I mean, it really negates this whole point. Not only that, but there were a lot of factors at work in what made the Dark Ages what they were. It's really stupid to just attribute that to Christianity. And then the other thing is that Christianity has single-handedly had such an amazing impact on quality of life, on just the areas of our societal funding that go to helping the poor, helping those in poverty. A lot of the social reforms that have happened have been spurned and propelled forward by Christianity. And so this to me is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there is, and this has been more of a trend recently, painting Christianity in such a dark light, in such a bad light, that we are a blight on society, that we are evil, that we're holding people back, we're oppressive, we're cruel, inhumane, all these other things that are gone with it. And in the list that you just made of all the contributions that Christianity has made over the last 2,000 years are huge. We did a video or live stream a couple of weeks ago about that. I'm going to mention here in a little bit. And so, yeah, hats off to Christianity. Hats off to, and that's only because of Jesus Christ having an impact on individuals and them working out that to the entire world that we see those changes. Okay, let's hit another one. This is the last one. This is basically, look at all these memes. You come to the conclusion that we're on the same level of people that believe in flat Earth. Right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, the flat earthers aren't helping us with that, because a lot of them literally use the Bible as reasons for why they believe in the flat earth, like taking the scriptures completely out of context. It's very, yeah.
And here's another comment from the Christian Sodium channel. It says, science being the opposite of religion is like saying a cup is the opposite of a plate. Yeah, I think they're complementary to each other, and we should see that. So I also came across a couple other memes that I thought were fun just to put up, because in searching all those memes, I thought with this, when threatened, the Pope can spray holy venom up to 25 feet. This is no slam against Catholics. I just thought this was funny. And then when you got your day planned out and Jesus is over there like, yeah, right. It's worth it. So
John, that reminds me of a joke where it's like, how do you make God laugh? You tell him your plans. It really is true. That one always makes me laugh.
Yeah, that works. So we're going to take a look then at some of these scientists. But before we do, I want to mention that we, like I said just a couple of minutes ago, that we had a couple of videos in the last few weeks. We did discuss this earlier this month. Eric from Your Brother in Christ, I was going to put the thumbnail in here, but I forgot to do that. He had a video about the shocking connection between science and the Quran revealed. There's a lot of claims made by Muslims that there's evidence of scientific miracles in the Quran, about how the Quran knew all these things before they were ever stated. And he goes through and shows the debunks of that. So taking a look at Islam. And then we had another video that I did last month about how Christianity did not ruin the world, but made huge contributions to universal moral framework, human rights and equality under the law, charity and compassion, advancement of science and education, which we're digging into a little bit deeper here, and arts and culture. Huge, huge, huge impact that Christianity had. And then a couple of weeks ago, I did a live stream on 7 ways the Bible supported science. And you mentioned a couple of these just a few minutes ago, Seth. You said that we've got encouragement of seeking knowledge, number 1, the pursuit of wisdom, encouragement of observation and discovery, which are the foundation for the scientific method, order and consistency in nature. God's creation is understandable. Because God's creation is understandable, you can explore it, you can define what those laws are. Number 6, use of empirical evidence. And then 7, humanity's role as a steward of creation. So we have all these, we learn about the laws, and then we use them in a good way to help tame the world, tame the universe, and things like that. So is Christianity opposed to science? What would you say?
Absolutely not. Just like a cup isn't opposed to a plate. I love that comment, by the way. That was a good.
Yeah.
Good.
So a couple of comments before we dive into the scientists. Nicodemus said, "Yep, Greeks say that too. We plan, God laughs." Yeah. I wonder what that is in Greek. If you happen to know what that'd be cool. If you can write in Greek too, that'd be even better. The scientific method is literally a system of finding the truth. Yeah, it's just I think, was it 5 steps, 7 steps, depending on how you divide it. And we talked about that in the previous video. So 7 Christian scientists who changed, 7 scientists who were Christian who changed the world. How's that? It's a little bit better, so we don't sound like we're talking about a cult. Who are the top 7 scientists or mathematicians in history who were also Christian, who quoted Christian ideology in the Bible? Now, you could probably tell by the thumbnail who some of those might be, but I'm just curious if you guys throw out, we're not going to be able to cover everybody. So there might be a chance that we'll cover the person that you're talking about, maybe not. But throw out some names for me and see who we have, and see if this is one that we can play. Euler needs to be one. I missed him. He's not in there. Maybe we should do like 45 scientists or mathematicians, philosophers who were Christians. But that's not one. Mendeleev. No, I did not. Putting together the periodic table. No, did not have him on there. See, I'm telling you, man, there's so many. So we should put like also ran, have these competitors. Maybe we'll do 7 more after this one. So the first one that I have is, now I'm doing this chronologically. I have these 7 that popped up, and we're going to be looking at them chronologically. The first one is Johannes Kepler. His field was astronomy and mathematics. His contributions, he's known for laws of planetary motion. Kepler's work laid the foundation for modern astronomy. As for his Christian beliefs, Kepler believed the study of the cosmos revealed God's plan and order. He was devoutly Lutheran and referenced his faith in his writings. So the impact on modern life. Kepler's laws of planetary motion revolutionized astronomy, paving the way for Newton's work and our understanding of the solar system. That's Isaac Newton's work, not my work. Can't take credit for that. His work underpins orbital mechanics, which are essential to satellite communication, space exploration, and astrophysics. So I'm going to pose this as a question to y'all, and I'm translating for our brother from Tennessee to make sure everything's okay. By the way, brother, I can maybe in effect a Southern accent because I lived in Mississippi for a short time. So maybe I can recall some of my youth and bring that back. I don't think
there
so.
You go.
If you can't understand me for some other reason, just let me know, and then I'll, choke back to a little bit of a drawl there and see what we get. What would life be like without Johannes Kepler's contributions? Orbital mechanics, working on understanding of the solar system. How would that affect our everyday life? And I have one comment here. It's definitely not that, but it might help. Ewans. My mother-in-law says that all the time. I didn't know what that meant at all. Okay, so Thomas Hall said, I think our current opposition comes out of an overreaction to Darwinism led to a fundamentalism that was skeptical of higher learning. That stereotype has stuck. Yeah, I think there might be some truth in that. I have spoken to some Christians who respond to science as being, I don't know, over pretentious, over the top, and wrong. Some science, I would say, some scientific hypotheses have been incorrect, but science expects that, right? Scientific method expects that. Okay, so as far as Johannes Kepler goes, the Christian Sodium channel says math class would be a lot shorter. That's not what I was going for, but it works. Okay, life without him. The space race and our ability to launch and navigate satellites might be severely delayed. How about navigating without GPS? If we've used that, that might be a problem. Weather forecasting, and please keep in prayer those people that are in Florida and Georgia and other places that have been impacted by hurricanes, especially for the one right now that's, I think it's a Category 5 now, Milton, as it's heading for Florida. Or maybe, I don't know, it may have made landfall by now, I'm not sure. But without Kepler, we wouldn't have been able to have some weather forecasting, the same level that we do now, and global communications would also have been hit by him. So I have a quote from Kepler that might be interesting. So to say that, I just say that he's a Christian, and my hand waving and say everybody back there was, so therefore Kepler was. But what if we bring up one of his quotes and see if he was? He said, I am merely thinking of God's thoughts after him. What does this mean? Seth, you got an idea? What does he mean?
Yeah, I didn't know if you were waiting for the comments to chime in. No. What that means to me is that in his discovery of truth and the scientific method, he's, and I could be off on this, but I feel like he's saying he's almost like rediscovering what God has already laid down. Like God is the architect of all of this stuff. He's laying it out. And so as Kepler goes through this stuff and discovers these things and works through the methodology of finding truth, which is the scientific method, he's sort of, going through this path that the creator has made for his creation to discover him along the way. I don't know if that,
yep.
Kind of
Nail on the head. And that's also what the Sodium channel here said. All creation is the thoughts of God. We study it. Yeah. And you can understand a little bit about the creator by looking at the creation, I believe. It's called natural theology. One of these guys, at least, that we're going to be touching on tonight, strayed away from natural. He thought that you could get into error with natural theology. But the idea is that you can look at creation and understand a little bit who God is. And I agree with you that. Absolutely. Do you think there's some truth behind that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there are several different, what I call, records for understanding God and his truth. You have the logos, the written record of the scriptures. You have the natural record of the world, the earth, the sciences, the physical universe. You have the historical record. You have all of these different things that sort of go into the equation of understanding truth. And so the natural sciences and just the study of the universe around us is definitely one of them, I think.
Right.
It even says the rocks would cry out, if we didn't praise him. And every time I hear that verse, for me, I'm just reminded of how intricate, like even the molecular and atomic structure of a rock is. If you like really get down to the nitty gritty of the fundamental science of like how all those particles interact, and it's mind blowing, and it just makes me want to worship God more. I'm like, You just look at that and it's, I don't know. That's,
Yeah, you know what? There's a certain joy with that goes on too. Just looking in awe at if you're able to catch a really clear night and look up, it's very crisp, low humidity. You look up in the sky, no moon, you can make out the Milky Way, and just the beauty and the wonder of all of creation, from astronomy to biology to physics, chemistry, all around. There is a joy to discovery there. And I think it is also the joy of the father to look at his children and say, yeah, there is a mutual feeling of excitement and joy that goes with it. I think that the father looks down on that and said, yes, this is what I have done this for. This is also, I think, mirrored in what the Christian Sodium channel said. Proverbs 25:2 is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings to search out the matter. This is also a verse that we were using a couple of weeks ago when we talked about God, the Bible, supporting science, and this is one of the verses that came out for this. So yeah, I just we sometimes need to be reminded how God takes joy in us, even though we're in a fallen state. He loves us. He loves us so much. He sent his son to die for us. All of that, and there is a time when we're going to be united with him, and it's going to be mind blowing. And so all this, there's the joy that goes with that discovery, and we get to see more who he is. So yeah, I'm merely thinking God's thoughts after him. Great quote by Johannes Kepler. The next guy we would look at is not Mendeleev, René Descartes. Do you recognize this? Have you heard this guy before? Do you know much about him? I don't mean to put you on the spot, Seth.
I don't know much about him off the top of my head, and maybe that's also like the ADHD, but I am familiar with him, with his name. I've definitely read about his works before. I'm just not exactly sure what he specifically discovered.
Okay. And we have, so he was known, his fields were mathematics and philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Descartes is considered the father of modern philosophy in analytic geometry. Now, if you notice his name, Descartes, without him, you would get lost on Minecraft. Because he was the guy who did the Cartesian coordinate system. Mm-hmm. The Cartesian coordinate system is named after him. Descartes, Cartesian. He made significant contributions to the scientific method as well. Now, was he just a cultural Christian, yada, yada? He believed in the existence of God and saw philosophy as compatible with Christian theology. His famous phrase, I'm going to hopefully pronounce this right, Latin, cogigo ergo sum. I think that's how he speaks. Cogigo ergo sum. I think, therefore I am, was part of his larger attempt to reconcile faith and reason. So you've heard that phrase before, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so basically what he was doing is he was like doubting everything. Doubt. Okay, how do I even know? Just like you were talking about earlier, that we're in a simulation. How do I know this? How do I know? I can't know of any of this. I don't even know. I can't trust any of my senses. But one thing he did know for sure was that he was doubting. And then from there, he backed everything back out to check out the universe. So
kind of seems like solving a maze by going backwards.
Yeah, basically, he got it back down to its fundamentals and worked its way out the other way. And this is such a bad joke. Don't put Descartes before the horse. Okay. Inductive reasoning. Yes, that's what he was using. So in his work, Meditations on First Philosophy, Descartes also articulates his belief in a benevolent God. Asserting the existence of a perfect being is fundamental to understanding the understanding of truth and knowledge. That's what he was saying with this. He argued that the perfect God would not deceive humans, which laid a groundwork for his epistemological views. Now, this is different from Islam, which says Allah is the greatest of all deceivers. So according to Descartes, he's following the Christian God, not the Muslim God who deceives.
Mhm.
His impact on modern life was the development of analytical geometry, made at least 2 or 3 courses that you had in high school on math single-handedly. He provided foundation for calculus and mathematical physics. His contributions to philosophy also shaped modern thought and rationalism in the scientific method. So, what would our life be like without Descartes? And if anybody says math classes, I'm going to ban you from this channel. No, go ahead. You can say math classes if you want. How would our life be different without his contributions?
I mean, like you were saying before, how could you ever find your base on Minecraft? Like, can't tell you how many times it's come in handy. No, but seriously,
you say that. My kids, when they started getting into, my youngest two, when they started getting into geometry and graphing and stuff like that, they flew through that series. My wife was like, "Oh my gosh, these kids are so smart. How are they doing it so quick?" I said, "Have you ever seen them play Minecraft? They understand that."
Yeah. I didn't remember much about Descartes right off the bat, but the word that kept coming up in my head was navigation. I kept thinking there was some link with that. And then when you said it, it clicked. It's like with the Cartesian points, I think that's had a lot of applications for mathematics and navigation and exploration, which has then opened up the door to so many other things. So the possibilities honestly are very broad for, you know, things that he specifically helped lay the groundwork for, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, it's not saying that if Descartes never existed or if he wasn't a Christian that we wouldn't have these here, because now I do believe that being a Christian had opened his mind to different things that he wouldn't have seen if he was not a Christian. That's not to say that you do not have scientists or mathematicians or philosophers who are not believers who don't make contributions. They do. But I think there's an extra edge that these guys would have. And it's not to say that we wouldn't eventually have an XYZ coordinate system now without him. Somebody probably would have come along later to fill in the gaps. That's true for all these scientists, right?
Yeah.
I want to,
how long that would have taken, though.
Yeah, it might have taken longer. And just like we saw that graph where they're saying, well, look how far back Christianity has made us. I think it's really the opposite.
Yeah.
When you look at it, when you look at all these scientists who made these contributions. And then the question is, I don't know if you could really ever answer this, but how much did being a Christian multiply their influence? You know, because they see God, because they know that we're living in a rational universe, because we know that there are laws here that can be established. All I need to do is discover them, like what Johannes Kepler said. As you believe that, then you can start stepping out and do these experiments and so forth. Now, we can look back at the ancient Greeks and say that not just them, but others at that time, and say, well, how did that differ with their view of the universe?
You mean so like the Greeks and stuff? So I'm not like an expert or anything, but I know a lot of their pantheistic systems were very chaotic. Their gods were very, I don't know, almost human-like. They did not seem very divine, very sovereign. It's almost like a caricature of what divinity is supposed to be. And so when you kind of view the world through that lens, it would affect your desire to kind of explore the order of the universe and maybe even your belief in the ultimate order of the universe and what's around you. Like the Bible says, God is not a God of chaos, but of order. I don't know, maybe looking from that lens, everything seems a little bit more chaotic. And I don't know, does that make sense?
It does, 100%. Because, okay, not to discount philosophers like Plato, Socrates, Epicurus, and others that made a huge impact in philosophy that were forerunners to modern science. But there was a general mindset that the gods are capricious, that you know, you can't count on certain things. You know, the gods, the laws who govern the laws of the world around us might wake up today with a headache and decide that they're going to cause this hurricane that's hitting Florida. So you have a world that is undefinable. You believe that. And if you believe that, then you're not going to necessarily go out and try to figure out what those laws are that the universe is based on.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
And
I
it's
believe
like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say, it's like Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. If your entire worldview is shaped by this sort of underlying belief that you can't really know anything for sure, you can't really have this ultimate picture put together, at least of the fundamentals, then why ever try? Like, you're not going to be able to if that's how you see everything.
Right. So life without Descartes, we would not have engineering, physics, computer graphics, robotics. They all rely heavily on Cartesian coordinates. Now, there is, I don't know if you've delved into some of the advanced, I'm electrical engineering, so there's some of the math classes I've had is you can have polar coordinates and not just Cartesian.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Remember
don't
that?
say polar coordinates. Don't. That reminds me of my college days. Oh, I hated that section.
Yeah. So now instead of like working on a box that everything XYZ, you're relating it to it in a circle, which actually would make sense in certain circumstances. It's better to say that whatever your frame is, your basis, because it's harder to calculate a circle given a square. So it's easier in certain circumstances to do it. Even radio, working with radio waves, it's easier to do that too, working with polar coordinates. But we wouldn't have had polar coordinates, I think, without Descartes' Cartesian coordinates. You have, without his contributions, modern technological advancements like computer-aided design, CAD, artificial intelligence, automation would have been hampered. Additionally, the philosophy and mind of reason would have been vastly different. He was the father of modern philosophy. So did he say anything that would really make us think that he was a Christian? I just crawling into an oven, curling up in a ball and saying, I think, therefore I am. I mean, that doesn't sound, was he quoting Ecclesiastes there or something? It doesn't sound very Christian. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that he said that would have said that at all? And the answer is yes. I have never encountered a philosopher who has not said something about God, because the very nature of things leads us to the conclusion that there is a God.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next one that we would look at is, make sure I get him up, Blaise Pascal. Now, I don't know if I'm saying his first name correctly. I know it's Pascal. I wouldn't recognize Pascal. Have you heard of this guy at all? Again, not trying to put you on the spot.
I have not, to be honest with you. I am not familiar with him at all.
Okay, 17th century, so the 1600s, his field was mathematics and physics. His contributions, he made major contributions to probability theory and fluid mechanics. He also invented an early mechanical calculator, the Pascaline. Pascal had, as far as his Christian beliefs go, he had a profound Christian faith and was known. Have you ever heard of Pascal's wager?
Oh, is that who this comes? Is that who that comes?
This guy is. Yes.
Okay, I guess I have heard of him then.
What do you know about Pascal's wager?
If I remember correctly, isn't that sort of saying like, well, there may be a God, there may not be, but if there's not a God and I die, then nothing happens. So I'm going to bet that there is, because if I die and nothing happens, I'm fine. But if I die and there is a God, then I'm set. Is that basically what the gist of what it is, or am I completely off?
That is it. And I see that we also have some people in the comments that are doing that. So correct us if we're wrong, but that's basically it. That, listen, hedge your bets, man. I mean, worst thing that's going to happen to you if you don't believe in God is that, okay, so I don't know, maybe you're not able to enjoy as many things in this life as what you might want to, or whatever. But if there is a God and you choose not to, the eternal consequences are more damning. Is that
Yes.
basically it?
Yep.
Okay.
I think so.
So, like I say, this is not the same thing, Nicodemus. I've heard of Pascal.
Oh man, I want some
Pasquale's
pizza right
pizza. Not the same thing. But he was very influential. And by the way, he was also homeschooled. So I don't know, patron saint to homeschooled kids or something like this. His father schooled him.
Homeschooled until college, believe it or not.
What's that?
I said I was actually homeschooled until college, believe it or not.
We also homeschooled our children. So hey, let's hear it for that, right? Impact on modern life, and you seem to be very socially adjusted, by the way, right?
Really? Well, just give it time. I mean, with the ADHD and all whatever else neurodivergencies are floating in my head, it won't take long, and you'll start to see I don't know. But thank you for saying that.
Well, that was one of the accusations, or at least the cautions that was given to us as homeschooling parents. We started back in the 90s, and there weren't a whole lot of us back then. But the thing was, well, what about socialization? What about it?
I mean,
I think it works out. Huh?
I don't care. Like, I got my socialization from books. Like, I mean, I just like got lost in a world of characters. I was fine. I didn't need a lot of
you know what? We might even do a live stream about that sometime. That's really off topic from the science fiction stuff. But I think, it's worth just looking at that and saying, okay, we've had a generation of kids at least who've been, there's a large segment homeschooling. Then how is the result? Is the result positive or negative? This little social experiment we've had. Are they outstanding citizens? Are they well educated? Are they well adjusted? Whatever metric you want to use to determine success, we can maybe apply that to that. So I think that might be worth it. Mm-hmm. So he was homeschooled, and his impact on modern life, his contributions to the probability theory are the basis for risk management, economics, and statistics. His work in fluid mechanics also helped build the foundations for modern hydraulics and engineering. So given all of that list I just gave, what do you think our life would be like without his contributions?
A lot different. I mean, so much of our society revolves around economics alone, just the trade and the markets and all of that. Hydraulics, that's very, very important in machinery. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I know that if you didn't have that principle in motion, applied in the technology, things would be a lot different. We'd have a lot less than we do now. And that would affect construction, travel and transportation, all sorts of things. And it would be a ripple effect from there. Honestly, I mean, you could cite the butterfly effect as who knows how much less developed we would be without these contributions. Like, I don't even know. It would be a lot, I think, unless someone right after him came along and discovered the same things. But
yeah, that's the thing. We don't know, because he was then there was one scientist we're going to hit later here, and I think he might even be next, where there was a simultaneous discovery, and there is some question about who really discovered this or invented this first between the two of them. And I think posthumously it's given to both. But for the large part, it does have to do with, again, viewing the world as understandable and ruled by a rational God, created by a rational God. Therefore, it is by nature, for the most part, understandable. And understanding the world might give us a clue more about who the world creator is, what his attributes are. So life without Pascal, I'm checking the comments, see if anybody added anything to it, but without Pascal, modern economics, finance, and insurance systems would lack statistical tools for assessing risk. I'm not a big fan of insurance companies, but still, there is that. Additionally, advancements in fluid dynamics, critical or crucial for medical devices, pumps, engines, would be delayed. I also heard that he invented a hypodermic needle, that he had was the first to come through with that. So his quotes that he had for this, did he have anything to contribute as far as Christianity goes? And I'm sorry, I need to get rid of Pascal. There you go, little guy. And put you back up. Sorry. He said the heart has its reasons which reason knows not. Now, this is a little bit harder to grasp.
I think he's kind of pointing out the dichotomy between passion and calculation. So like it is kind of a pet peeve of mine when people associate like logic and thinking with just the cold hard calculations of facts, because you can have logic is really just a mechanism by which we understand what makes sense, what is, right? And that can be applied anywhere. But I think what he's getting at here is you have sort of the cold hard facts of things around you, reason, you know, but then you have passions, you have motives, you have desires, you have sort of this other side that the creator has written into us, into our hardware here, that kind of sometimes it defies reason. And you see this so many times in movies and stories where it's like you have the pragmatic decision, oh, sacrifice whoever to save 100 people, and that's like the right decision. And then the main character goes on this whole journey of, you know, doing the illogical thing to save the person they love. And, you know, it's just, I think he's kind of pointing out that there can sometimes be deeper reasonings that can fly in the face of sort of the reasoning of just cold, hard logic or pragmatism, I think is what he's getting at, if that makes sense.
I think so. Is that reason can only get you so far. And there is something more beyond that. It's difficult to really put your finger on this all the time. We were looking at Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. We get to the point where you cannot determine everything. That it is, I think we still should seek out knowledge by empirical data and the scientific method, but that's not an end all. There is some understanding that you're going to get that's beyond just that are in knowledge of God. You can maybe even relationships with other people. I mean, can you really break that down to mathematics and science?
No, there's something more. Just like there's, you know, you have physics and metaphysics. I mean, there's something more than just, you know, the reasoning of the situation like that.
Yeah. So we have a couple of comments here with in the chat. It says the news is not the same as the brain. I'm not sure if you were making a comment about his quote or not, Nicodemus. Thomas Hall said Einstein came up with his best ideas after setting them aside and going on a bike ride. So I guess inspiration coming from other avenues other than just empirical data and so forth.
That's true for my riding too. Honestly, I'll get some of the best ideas just going for a walk, just doing something else.
Right. He also came up with one of the first "God's not dead" quotes. He said, "God is a God of the living, not the dead." Now, how would you parse this out? What does this mean?
It's hard to know exactly without surrounding context. Is he responding to people saying God's dead? Was that Nietzsche that said that God is dead?
But he came after this.
Yeah, I'm not sure when Nietzsche was around. I don't have my timelines all straightened out, but I guess he's saying that, you know, the living, the things that are here right now, you know, it's like God is God of us too. It's not just about after you die, some mystical afterlife, and that's all that God has to do with, and the real world here and now has nothing to do with that. It almost seems like he's saying there shouldn't be a separation between what we see here now today when we're alive and then what's after we die. Is that what he's getting at, do you think?
Well, this reflects a belief in a personal and act, emphasizing the relationship between faith and life, as opposed to maybe the deist that says that there is a God who created, there is a creator, but he's not involved with us. He doesn't have anything to do with this, and spun us off and let us on his own. Blaise Pascal, by the way, there's a computer language that was named after him that was popular in the 70s and 80s. It was replaced by more object-oriented programming languages, but it was used a lot in academia. I mean, this guy had a huge amount of influence. He died at an early age of 39 while writing an apologetic for the Christian faith, including a critique on Islam. So we're not just talking about a cultural Christian here that showed up for Christmas and Easter service and put Christianity down on his driver's license or just like he would claim it as maybe a political party. This is a guy who actually lived it, believed it, and basically preached it, and had a huge influence on science and philosophy. Now, shout out to Josh McDowell's video on Blaise Pascal. It's called The Brilliance of Blaise Pascal, Jesus, Islam, and More. And I think it's an hour-long video. He interviews an author who wrote I don't know for sure if it's a full-blown biography, but he wrote about Pascal and talks about him. Oh, thank you. I should know this before I get started. Blaise? Is it Blaise, not Blaise? Blaise is like, I don't know. So, okay. Correction. I wish I could go back and make that change if that was the case, but I can't. So these are the things that he said. We'll take a look at the next guy, which I have a personal connection to. He is Isaac Newton. We all know him, physics, mathematics, astronomy. Contributions, he formulated the laws of motion, universal gravitation. He also developed calculus, if you're aware of that or not. And this is the guy that I mentioned earlier who said there was somebody who was not necessarily competing with him, but came up with calculus, is just another way of doing mathematics, on his own. It was Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz who also came up with it. And there was some contention between the two who was doing it. And the reason why Newton had created calculus is because regular mathematics of the day did not fully describe gravitational bodies in motion. So he wanted to be able to do that with integrals and derivatives that calculus provides. And he came up with calculus. Now, Leibniz did the little squiggly for integrals and the D for derivatives that we use in modern day notation for calculus. But so how do we know that he was a Christian and not just going with the flow? Newton wrote extensively on theology and biblical prophecy. He viewed his scientific work as a means to understand God's creation and saw the universe as a manifestation of divine order. Do we see a trend going here with all these guys? Is there some line between? What do you think?
I mean, all of them are directly motivated by their faith in God and in their attempt to understand the world around us.
Yeah. So because we want to understand the world around us and we believe that we can also understand that there is a God who created us, then these guys follow this line. So very main line throughout. I wonder if looking at the state of physics today, if you could do that or not. I mean, not physics, the state of modern universities, to see if you can do that or not. And I think the answer is there are some real problems. And we are joined by...
Now we can start the stream.
Oh my gosh. Look who's here. Now we got trouble.
Hey, I'm finally here. Let's go.
So you know what? Do you mind if we change positions here?
I don't care. It's your show. It's your studio.
Because I got things set up over here.
God, coming into a place and the guy starts asking me permission to do stuff in his own studio.
Well, you know what? This happens. And this is Seth.
Hey,
the
Seth.
guy in the middle is Isaac Newton. I don't even
I figured
recognize
I
him.
just dropped on in.
Isaac Newton has not said a word since we got started. I'm very
He's a
disappointed.
lazy bum then.
He is.
Such an introvert, honestly.
He was probably homeschooled. So, impact on modern life. Without Newton's laws of motion and universal gravitation, we would still be flying around because before him, there was no gravitation. The earth sucked. So, as we go on, how he gave us laws for how objects move and interact. And our understanding of that would be vastly different. Physics, engineering, space exploration, and even everyday technology like cars and airplanes rely on Newton's principles. So, having said all that, what would life be like without Isaac Newton? And by the way, before you answer that, yeah, it would still be around because he didn't have any children. So, okay.
Oh man, where do I start? I mean, calculus is I mean, for one thing, that also brings me back to my college days. You're just reminding me of all this stuff in my past.
Sorry,
but
this is painful.
no, but like calculus is used in so many different fields. It's crazy. Like I don't even know them all, but I mean, calculus is absolutely foundational. And then you talk about transportation. I mean, all of that, like, I don't even know. Like, our society without these contributions would not look the same at all. Like, we'd be so far back. And I don't know if somebody else would have discovered them, quickly after. Like you were saying, that other guy was also, researching this stuff in tandem. But if the contributions themselves weren't here, I mean, our society, I think, would be like a night and day difference.
Right. Leibniz just did calculus. He didn't do the laws of motion. So there is one part. We would still have calculus today. So can't blame that all on Newton. But laws of motion, again, maybe somebody else would have figured it. But it's because a belief in a rational God, that there is order and that he is still involved with us today, and a desire to have a relationship with him and understand him is what propelled. You could see with these guys' comments all the way through. That's what got them going. So yeah, I think you're 100% right. What would life be like without Newton?
Yeah, boring.
Yeah,
I wouldn't get stuck anywhere. I wouldn't have such issues. I'd be able to fly again
because of no gravity.
No, and even if algebra would have been, or even if calculus, even if his calculus would have been discovered by another alternative, the perspective might have been completely different. It would not look the same as we see. Well,
I would say no, not for that actually, because Leibniz, and I'm sorry you missed that earlier. Leibniz did. It was they didn't work together, but they both discovered at the same time. In fact, there was a contention even at their time who did it first. Leibniz, we do use his notation for calculus. So, but for the laws of motion, that would
do they work together, or is it independent?
It was independent. Okay. They both came up at the same time. This is one of those quirks in history where it does work out that way. Then
we would see the same then.
Yeah. Impact on modern life. Now, before I get into my spiel on that, I see some of the comments here. I got to put this up. Okay, this isn't funny. Where'd it go? It just jumped on me.
You can't find it anyway, so don't worry about it. It must not be that important.
No, it was a good one. Hold on.
Oh, so now it's a good one.
You
said it wasn't even funny, and you're going to pull it up and make fun of it. Now you're admitting it's a good one.
It was.
How quickly you flip.
How many comments are there that you have to look through?
Well, there's a few in here. Okay, here we go. I did click on it, and it just moved up in the chat, so I didn't take it. He said, "Now, son, I've got a problem with this." He said, "Where would we be without the fig Newton?" I got teased relentlessly in elementary school. This fig Newton. So yeah.
My life would have been so much better. I would have had better snacks at my grandma's house growing up, to be honest.
That is true.
No joke. He looks like he might be related to Olivia Newton-John. And then it's accused of being a wig. I don't know. It might have been. Or the dude was a surfer in his spare time. One or the other. Not sure. And then if it wasn't... Okay, so I got to put this up. Calculus, the study of calculators. These guys are bad. These are all dad jokes. I'm telling you, it's terrible. Nicodemus said, if it weren't for Newton, I would have been a chemist. I might have been a chemist today. Why? Because of the calculus. There you go. Doing calculus. Yes.
It's the calculus.
Yes. Okay. All those derivatives and integrals and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he has made a huge contribution. Without him, the impact of modern life, Newton's laws of motion and universal gravitation, our understanding of how objects move and interact would be vastly limited. Physics, engineering, space exploration, even everyday technologies like cars and airplanes rely on Newton's principles. Space travel, GPS, and much of modern engineering could be non-existent and primitive, and we might still rely inaccurately on models of the universe, limiting theological or technological and scientific advancement. But talking about theological, is there anything that he said that would make us think that he actually was a Christian and not just cultural? I can see how it might be possible for man to look down upon the earth and be an atheist, but I cannot conceive how he could look up in the heavens and say there is no God.
You have more quotes from him?
I do.
Good. Because there's one I'm looking for particularly.
It was not, well, I don't know. Is this one? Atheism is so senseless and odious to mankind that it never had many professors. Well, I am sorry to say, Mr. Newton, it is no longer true. And you can say that many professors or many universities today are odious because of it. And before anyone says I'm an ignoramus and uneducated, I have been educated by the universities quite a few years. So there is that.
I actually have a T-shirt with this on it.
Do you have a T-shirt with that?
I have this. Yeah, David Wood did a T-shirt.
Oh,
with this on it.
With,
okay. His face in a cartoon.
Okay.
So
Seth, and I'm going to check the comments. Any last questions? Any last comments about Newton before we move on to the next one? Okay, I'm looking. Nope. Okay, checking them out. Okay, so next one that we have beyond Newton.
Hold on just 1 second, guys. Hold on.
See, I told you, about time everyone jumps on, comes a knocking.
Okay. So he muted. That's good. And as he's getting ready for that, I'll go for the next one. We have 3 more to go. We have Michael Faraday. What contributions do you recognize Faraday at all? Have you recognized
Faraday?
Yeah, the Faraday cage.
Faraday. Yeah, that's where I was going. Faraday cage.
Yes, he was the father of modern prisons, as you know. The Faraday cage is where you lock people up. No, what is a Faraday cage?
It's a very fun metal box that if you walk in, you get no cell service.
That's right.
It keeps electronics safe in case there's like an electromagnetic pulse.
Yes, so if you got a nuke going off or something like that, you can. If you've got a Faraday cage around it, it won't affect.
That's true.
The EMP won't affect it. It looks blast well, but it'll be safe from the EMP.
Michael Faraday, 1791 to 1867, field physics and chemistry. His contributions included groundbreaking discoveries in electromagnetism, electrochemistry, including principles of electromagnetic induction and Faraday's law. Now, how do we know that he was a Christian? Faraday was a devout Christian. His faith informed his belief in the intelligibility of nature. Sound familiar? And that the study of physics, the physical world, was a way to glorify God. Not just to understand God, but he went a step further and to say it was a way to glorify God. His impact on modern life, Faraday's discoveries in electromagnetism led to the invention of electric motors, generators, transformers, and his work underpins modern electrical grids, electrical devices, and communication technologies. Now, how would our life be different without this guy?
How would it be the same? That's a shorter list.
No more Minecraft, that's for sure.
No more Minecraft. We were talking about Cartesian coordinates and not being able to tell you where you are.
No, there wouldn't be any. The society that we have today requires these men to have made the discoveries that they did because they're so fundamental to everything we have.
Yes. Okay, so we've got lightning rod type thing. Okay. Oh, the Faraday's cage. Yes. It's with electromagnetic waves. Yes, it insulates you from it. Basically, makes you invisible for electromagnetic waves. And would be a world steampunk, definitely. Is he saying loved his work in Planet of the Apes? You get your hands off me, you filthy animal. Where in the world does that come from? I cannot.
I did not know.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're lying, George. Oh,
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Oh, yes. Okay, so I think...
Sure that was something I missed. This is why you guys shouldn't join halfway in a live stream.
Absolutely.
You need to join from the beginning so you get everything and you're not lost.
Absolutely. And Thomas said, Gregor Mendel, father of genetics, was a monk. George Washington Carver, also a devout Christian. We'd have no peanut butter. Yes. And my wife kept saying George Washington Carver. I said, I don't have him on the list. But George Mendel, yes, he is. Yes, he is. So life without Faraday, the world would be without electronic power grids, making modern life nearly impossible. No lights, no modern factories, no motor cars, not a single luxury, computers, smartphones, or telecommunications. We'd be likely relying on mechanical power sources like steam engine for energy. So yes, steampunk all the way without Faraday.
So in other words, it's his fault we don't have a steampunk world.
It is 100% his fault. What did Michael Faraday say? He said, I am often asked, what is the greatest discovery you have ever made? And I answer, I discovered that I am a child of God.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. He also said the chief aim of all investigations of the external world should be to discover the rational order and harmony which has been imposed on it by God, which he revealed to us in the language of mathematics. And that's why we all don't like him, because we don't like math, and therefore the rest is history.
Let's speak about yourself. I actually enjoyed it. That was my one of my favorite courses.
What, it was math?
Mathematics and basically anything to do with math and history.
Okay, because I don't want to go too long on this, I'm going to try to push through, do the others real quickly. And I appreciate you guys' patience, especially you, Seth, because I did not give you a time. Did I give you time limit? I'm if I did. Joe, the next one is Gregor Mendel. And I think this is the one one of the guys just mentioned in the chat. Who was that?
Was it the Christian Sodium channel? Was that?
Yeah, I think it might have been. Yes, thank you. So what did he have to contribute in saying, who is this guy? He was not a physicist. He was involved in genetics. That was his field. He is known as the father of modern genetics for his pioneering work in heredity using pea plants. Now, how do we know this guy's a Christian? Was he just, again, cultural Christian? Did he make any contributions?
No, because he's on this list.
He's on this list.
Yeah, there you go.
He is an Augustinian monk, or was, I shouldn't say is, and his scientific discovery was deeply intertwined with his religious life. He saw no conflict between his faith and scientific inquiries, believing that studying biology was a way to understand God's design. Impact on modern life. Well, go figure. Anything to do with genetics, right? His work on heredity formed the foundation for modern genetics. The entire field of genetics, from understanding hereditarily in past diseases to the development of genetic modified crops, stems from his discoveries. Now, even if you don't like genetic modification for crops, the way that he did it wasn't like the CRISPR method. Of course, that didn't involve with him at the time, but he crossbred plants and stuff like that. But this guy saved millions and millions of lives just because of increased food production. So
that would do it.
Of all these guys impacted here, he probably saved the most people's lives of all the people we talked about. So how would life be like without Gregor Mendel?
Fewer people.
Hungry. Be a lot hungry.
Yeah.
We'd be still locked in that way in a lot of ways, because everything we do, if you look at a corn on the cob today versus what it used to be, it's like, holy cow, are those even related? Grass. It's more of a grass with like a couple kernels.
Well, I don't know if you would say that was generally because of him, because that predates his studies of being able to
You contributed to it though.
You think no, that was in the Americas.
So what food did he help? That's your selling point.
Yeah, well,
I feel gypped.
His advancement in genetics for more modern times, because he lived 1822 to 1844. So anything beyond that time for genetically enhanced food. Now, and say enhanced, again, this is by crops that are done, not by GMO and stuff like that. He would have made a contribution to.
What about things like disease and addiction and, things that you can track that are hereditary, passed down? I mean, hasn't that saved lives as well? Like
yeah,
countless?
Definitely.
Still better genetics than Muhammad put forth.
Yes. You can comment in depth about that. Do we have any data of Muhammad and his influence on genetics?
It just who got to climax first.
Oh, okay.
That determined who the child looked like.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why we have an R rating on this live stream.
See, I walk in and the ratings go up.
It was
G rating.
Life without him. Without Mendel, the field of genetics would have developed much later. Modern medicine's understanding of inherited diseases, genetic understanding, and the advancements of achievements like DNA, understanding DNA, forensics might be decades behind. Agricultural yields would be lower due to lack of genetic engineering, impacting global food production like we talked about. So did he have any, what would you say, quotes regarding Christianity? The answer is yes. He said, science and religion are not in conflict. Forget about all those memes we looked at earlier. The more we learn about nature, the more we see that God has set order in the laws of nature. Dun, dun, dun. Thank you, Mr. Mendel. Last guy that we have here is James Clerk Maxwell. Have anybody heard of this guy and what his contributions are?
I have heard of him, but I'm not familiar with his contributions off the top of my head.
I'm going to check the chat. Oh, wow. I'm way behind on the chat. Sorry about this, guys.
XXXXX.
I actually enjoyed that in science class, which because we're talking about genetics here. And there's so much here, guys. I'm not going to be able to capture it all in this. Remember, the people used to think that cheese on the floor turned into mice at that time. Yeah, spontaneous generation.
Spontaneous generation was another.
Like the meat and the larva, they thought that like if you left meat out, it would just produce maggots, and that's where they came from.
That and bad smells were the reason for disease.
Yes.
And
miasma.
The whole miasma thing. That's why we got the doctors with like the duckbill looking thing that was just filled with flowers.
And that was during the Black Plague.
Black Plague. Yeah.
Looked like a
plague doctor. Yeah.
Plague doctor, crow nose looking thing.
Yeah.
So that was all off of the whole concept of miasma being there, and that's what caused it. Now, stinky smells might be an indication of something rotten or something going wrong, but it's not the cause.
Right.
It's the symptom.
Yep. So this guy, Maxwell, James Clerk Maxwell, his contributions in the fields of both mathematics and physics he is famous for the formulation of Maxwell's equations, which describes the fundamentals of electromagnetism. Maxwell was a deeply religious Christian and often quoted the Bible. He saw science as a way, dun, 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 go for it, to explore divine order in the universe. He also helped establish the Cavendish Laboratory, explicitly stating that he wished how scientific truth and Christian truth could stand together. So the cool thing about what he discovered is that you have electronic waves that can be generated and magnetic waves that would be at right angles to that. And these things would work together. And it was a huge discovery because they looked at both of these mathematically. When the two combined, thought, oh, look at this, eureka, I found it. To discover that they're both really not just related, but part of the same thing. So there are 4 fundamental forces that govern physics, govern the universe. The strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force, electromagnetism, and gravity. So that is like number 3. It's like not in importance, but is one of the fundamental forces that govern the universe. And this guy nailed it.
So he invented that, and Newton invented gravity. Fantastic.
I wouldn't say invented, though.
No. Discovered.
Discovered. Right.
Discovered. I was making a joke.
Right. So his impact on modern life, you can think about this. Holy cow. What would modern, there wouldn't be a modern life without electromagnetism.
Nope.
His equations are fundamental to the understanding of electromagnetism, enabling radio, television, telecommunications, modern physics, including quantum physics. All this comes together. So knowing this, picture life without that. I'm thinking Amish here.
Yep.
John, it's life, John, but not as we know.
Not as we know it.
Not as we know it.
So I checking out the comments here. I'm just going to bring this up here as well. Everybody can just chime in at any time. This guy invented his own formula and code. No one took him seriously because he was independent in the study and didn't use popular scientific jargon at the time. Interesting bloke. Yeah. So without him, the world that would be without him, and okay, one more comment here from the Christian Sodium channel. He observed with lightning flash, compass needle went nuts. Eureka, electric, and magnetism were the same. Yes, that was the cool discovery. I thought it was maybe he had it wasn't, the discovery wasn't lightning, although it might have been. I thought you had to have an alternating current. So you had an alternating current through electric line. He moved it, and then he saw as he moved it, then the magnetism, the compass went crazy. Either way, he did make that Eureka discovery there, and that was cool. So life without Maxwell's work, radio, television, radar, and wireless communication would likely not exist. Modern technologies like Wi-Fi, cell phones, and even the internet would be delayed or underdeveloped. Physics, including understanding of light, electromagnetic waves, would be limited, including countless technologies and innovations. Amish. Take all these guys, wipe all these guys off. Maybe discoveries would be made later. But because we see this one line of logic going through all of them, universe is discoverable, it makes sense, and we have a creator behind it all, the God who is still involved in our lives. That's what brought all this science into existence because of these guys. Now, quotes from this guy. This is our last scientist, and what did he have to say? I think that we cannot help believing that there is a reality behind this, talking about electromagnetism and what's going on with it, behind this appearance, and that is God. God is behind this. We have a logical God. He created it. The law of nature, as we know it, is a manifestation of the will of God. Not some crackpot, not some guy saying flat earth or, cheese makes mice or whatever, but a huge impact in science and technology. Take that off. So, how would our lives be impacted without these men? You could go through a whole list, put this all together. Basically, we're living in the dark ages, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Any last comments? Because I gotta hold down here when you get down to it.
Go for it.
Okay. When you get down to it, these 7 Christian scientists, mathematicians, and philosophers made a significant contributions to science while maintaining deep connections to their Christian faith or referencing biblical ideas, showcasing the historical relationship between a relationship with Jesus Christ and the scientific inquiry. In short, without these men, the pace of human progress will be nearly in every field of communication, transportation, energy, medicine, and technology would be much slower, making modern life as we know it nearly unrecognizable. Even more important than all this, Jesus Christ was central to their worldview. Their understanding of God, who laid the foundations of an observable universe governed by laws made their scientific breakthroughs a possibility. Dun, dun, dun. Coming up Thursday morning, we're going to do a review on a classic, Timeline. I don't know if it's really a classic. Seth, have you ever heard of this movie, Timeline?
I have not. What is this?
This is based on a book by Michael Crichton. It's one of my favorites, although it did get some lower ratings. It has to do with people who go back in time from here to the Middle Ages and have some interactions back then. I won't go too deep into it because it's a spoiler, but it was a fun movie. I enjoyed it. It's one of my favorites. And
it's decent.
We're gonna take a look at some of the action stuff like that. It's not that great.
Cheesy,
but it was fun. It's a fun popcorn movie, and if you like sci-fi, it's enjoyable. So we're gonna take a look at that, and then next week, is going to be a bit of a surprise because this guy's doing.
I'm gonna take it over.
The last time he did this, we did this Mandela Effect Challenge. Do you want to say anything about next week, or is it going to be a surprise?
No, sure, I'll say it. It's going to be an anime challenge.
Anime challenge.
You call yourself a science fiction author, okay? Fine. I'm going to get up a bunch of different types of animes all together, some science fiction, some fantasy.
Okay.
And ask you if it's an actual successful anime or not. See if you can tell the difference between successful story writing and not successful story writing.
You're really
and the reason why I'm picking anime is because it's not your culture. So this ought to be fun.
Yeah.
I really hope you include Sword Art Online in that.
What's that?
I said I really hope you include Sword Art Online.
Yeah, do that. Already have. You did a review.
We did a review on that. It's the one anime that we did the review on, and so yeah, that is.
And I want to go deeper into the rabbit hole than Sword Art Online.
Okay.
It will be kept more PG rated.
I hope so. Some of these are really kind of like on the raunchy side. So, Seth, do you know any animes out there? Are you an expert? Maybe I need to ask you for the rescue.
I'm not an expert. I like a few of them. Attack on Titan's a good one. Sword Art Online. And then I don't know if this counts as an anime. It's kind of the same style, but it's not really like a classic anime. But Voltron was like an old cartoon back in the day. I loved that. I watched that growing up. Just, random stuff like that.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I think I'm going to be at his mercy. This might be a good one, might not. The one that we did with the Mandela Effect was a hit.
Oh, that was fun.
A lot of interaction. We're hoping for a lot of interaction with this next week too, depending on how things go. So until then, I want to thank you all for your contributions, especially with what all these scientists. And there's many more guys that we could hint besides the ones that we had here tonight. And some of you mentioned them as well. So until then, we'll see you next time.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.